Ask the questions. We answer them live right here on Facebook. I had a pre-submitted question here once again from the Facebook group here for Service Autopilot today. Kyle asked, SAP reports, Service Autopilot custom reports. Can anyone point me in the direction how to add your own custom columns to perform basic functions of math, such as actual hours divided by budgeted hours? I just know I could get so much more functionality out of the reporting. A lot of people answering or actually putting some notes on here regarding this. And really, the report center is a very, very powerful tool, but we need to actually proceed with some caution and figure out what we want before we get in there and actually create a game plan. So what I'm going to do is pop open the screen in natural form here as we normally do. If you have any comments or questions about the report center, anything around SA, please drop the notes in the comments, and we're going to be coming on live pretty much every day here throughout the winter season, answering your questions pre-submitted either directly to Simple Growth or in the Facebook groups that we hang out in to help business owners scale and grow their business in the off season. So without any further delay here, I'm going to go in and grab the screen of reports and share that out as I normally do. Once again, comments and questions, drop them below here. And I just got to flip this around here to make that view. Had it like that yesterday with an interview we did with Mike Andes announcing his 2023 Landscape Summit in Louisville, Kentucky, right before Equipment Expo, which is now used to be GIE. So the question, once again, if you're joining, is how to build custom reports and Service Autopilot submitted on the Facebook user group. I'm going to dive in. First thing on a high level, I'm going to show you some slides real quick to go over an overview, and I'm going to dive into the report center and answer Kyle's question. If you have never been in the report center and Service Autopilot, we go into reports, report center. It pulls up this screen. SA has built out some really great canned reports. If you're not into building your own, right here under the little toaster oven icon, it looks like here under reports. What we're going to be building here is actually analyses. And analyses, as you can see, we've got quite a few here where we built out production rates here for a bunch of our clients so they know how much time it takes to cut, say, 1,000 square feet with a 60-inch mower or to mow below an edge. But we've got a lot of stuff in this test account here. But the idea is Kyle wanted some basics, how to build custom reports. I'm going to show you the top 3, actually 4 as a bonus reports that you should have inside your Service Autopilot account. And then I'm going to show you some basics, how to build them out. So hold tight. Here we go. So I'm going to pop this open as we normally do. And the first thing that we're looking at here, once this loads, is an automated report based around automation. So little known fact, most people think that you cannot build reports around automations. Even at one point in the early days, SA did not understand that you could actually go out and build these in here. If you see the logo in the upper left-hand corner of my screen, this is our Simple Growth Scale Group and Scale Plus. These are a couple slides that I used in one of our previous talks where we get business owners together once a month and teach these concepts. And we also have 2.5 hours a month, one-on-one with one of our 7-figure coaches. So most of those folks are growing by several $100,000 a year on their way to break $1 million to our masterminds group. But the first report that we're looking at here is 20 days to close. It's an automated estimate follow-up report. And what this report does is it actually communicates on how many people are in your sales pipeline. So if we're going towards the end of the month here and we need to know what is active in our sales pipeline, under communicating, it's our status. How many days have they been in our sales pipeline here on the left? And then we've got the actual estimate date, the projected revenue. A really important thing that we want to be looking at is the type. Is it a lead or client? Because we're going to have different closing ratios versus a new sale versus an upsell or expansion play. Estimate number for easy reference. The status, has it been sent or is it in draft? Also important. We filter this out just so it is the sent estimates only. The email of the client, the postal code, and the source. How did they hear about us? Because once again, we could go in and iterate off this. If you're doing lead source tracking inside Service Autopilot or any other software, you're going to have very distinct closing ratios based on your client lead source. So these are things that we want to be able to do to empower the business owner to have a really good look diving into their business of how many people are in their sales pipeline, how long has it been, the estimate value, and the lead source, and are they a lead or client? And this is going to give us some clarity here where to focus to drive those sales to hit our monthly, quarterly, and yearly goals. So report number 1, a automated report based on your sales pipeline, including estimate date, value, lead source, estimate status, and whether they're lead or client. That's going to be report number one that I'm looking at in my service business as we look to Callahan's Lawn Care. Next thing we want to look at is doing a little homework. So under the payroll job costing tab on the right, under the employee level, we should be putting their hourly rate and their labor with labor burden. So not only, Kyle, am I going to talk about these reports, but I'm going to give you some of the data you need, because good data in, good data out. What we're finding here is no data in, no data out. So we need to have some good data in here to be able to drive those important business decisions that Kyle wants to make in his reports. So we need to go in, Kyle, before we do one of the second must-have report is we need to add in our labor burden. Now, these are some fictitious numbers, but the idea is we got workman's comp, unemployment, FICA, some other things in there, maybe health insurance, things like that don't play into your business yet, so you'd zero it out. But what you're going to have is down here on the left, a say 19% labor burden. We plug in each employee's number here in the Simple Growth Blueprint. It kicks out your labor with labor burden. We put the hourly rate here and the regular rate with labor burden and the overtime with labor burden. Now, you may ask, Mike, why would we ever fill this data in? Well, Kyle, the question is, why wouldn't we? Because this data is now flowing into a SRA report of report number 2 that I think is essential. So what we've got is employee job costing data in reports. So whether you're pulling this from a pre-canned report in the little toaster oven, and I'll show you what report that is, this data is going to flow in automatically. This is one of our customized reports, and I'm going to show you how to build out some of this. But we need to be clocking in and out of the mobile, and we need to be clocking into the drive time in and out, and we need to hit the start and stop for the labor. Those are the data points that when Kyle goes to build these or anybody else reports that we want in the system. Data in, data out. No data in, no business decisions out. So once you fill this out with the labor and labor burden on the previous screen, and we go into the product called Logi. It's a third-party bolt-on reporting system, enterprise reporting system, actually, inside Service Autopilot. It's going to give you your labor cost, labor and labor burden, and direct drive time direct cost at non-billable time here. And honestly, we probably could start backing in some inefficiency percentages of downtime once we get this data in the report. But the idea is, whoever's clocked into that job or drive time, we get their labor and labor burden per job. So this is going to give us some ability to see if we're winning on the site or if we're losing on drive time. Now, 3 things that could happen with that drive time when you're inferring from this report is A, you have not created good route density. You've routed incorrectly for route density, or B, or actually C, your employees are making not informed decisions and driving halfway across town for a gas station or cigarette break. But these things can start to be inferred based on this data by simply forcing the methodology of them clocking and clocking out. So that's report number 2, job costing data in reports for labor costs and direct costs as we get that in there. And that's going to be our clock time times our labor and labor burden. That all happens automatically in SA. So that's a report number 2. So once again, good data in, good data out. Not only am I going to show you how to manipulate some of these reports, but we want to be able to make sure we've got the system set up correctly to do that. So if you're interested, we do offer free audit, 45 minutes of SA to make sure, or any software to make sure you're using it correctly and getting the data you need to run your service business. This is a closeout day screen in Service Autopilot. And this is probably the most important screen in the entire system because it sets you up for success to make sure we have all the data we need for invoicing and our reporting. So first thing we want to do is go on the far right-hand side here under columns, and we want to click closeout day screen. We want to click variance, and we want to put actual hours. And what that's going to do is get us all the data we need on a daily basis for a quick 2 to 3 minute sweep per crew to make sure all the data is in there. So when we run the reports, we're going to show you how to build in a minute, that we've got good data. Now that's going to be under our dispatch board. What we want to do is actually go to resource filter to the crew and create a view. So we're clicking through Mo Crew 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just making sure cadence in each day. And if there is not the drive time or there is not the clock in, clock out time, we are going to that crew leader at the beginning of the day and ensuring that data is entered in. That cadence of probably once a week solid will get your crew leader into shape. If your crew leader is not still clocking in and out of the data after a week, week and a half, it's either coach up or coach out, because this is the essential business data that we need to run our businesses. And if we're doing pay per performance or piece rate pay, this is the data that we can automatically pull in a piece rate pay system. We do that for lawn care and home cleaning at this point. So close out day screen. Once we hit those columns and the data, we want to make sure we have a good start and stop time. That's over a minute, hopefully. We have our variance is the over and under. We want to make sure we have so the three things we're checking really quickly: start and stop times, a rate, and budgeted hours. If those three variables are there, we are set up for some of these reports we're going to be diving into shortly in a second. All right. So raising prices, big thing going into this season. How do we know these customers are profitable? So there is a total of two reports. I'm actually going to call it three that are essential under this umbrella. So we've given you actually the top three reports. I've given you probably two bonuses in this talk here, and then I'm going to show you how to build some of this stuff out. So the first thing is how to know when we're raising our prices. So this is an export from the little toaster oven pre-built reports. And the idea here is this is a manual version, which I'm not recommending. We use the report center, which I'm going to show you how to use in a second. But if we did export it, what this report does manually is shows you how much revenue we generated per mowing, what our revenue, our price was per cut, the revenue per man hour based on the guys, so on average 57.30. If our desired goal per man hour in that crew is 60, we need to raise the price by $2.56. The good news is this can all be automated in the Service Autopilot's Report Center. And if you have the automations, you can actually automate that report, up to 5 of them, to be emailed to you and your team members on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. So this is what we're getting into here in a second. So new V2 KPI and accountability. This is what we're going to be doing in the new report center and how we build it out. So once this is built out, that same exact report that was a manual extract, a whole bunch of Excel or Google Sheet formulas, we have now automated that and built that into Service Autopilot. So what you're going to see here as we dive through is clocked time. Is the data okay? So you can build some logic in these reports to make sure there's actually data in here. Is there billable hours? Is there budgeted hours? And is there a job amount? So if you remember a few seconds ago, I talked about the key elements on the Service Autopilot report or dispatch board or closeout day screen. We need a start and stop time, a budgeted time, and a job amount. An automated report, now if we build it customized, can check to make sure that data is there. And if it isn't, you'll see on one of the next screens, it can actually tell you to check your data. So what we've got here is a daily and weekly report that we'd want to run. So I'm going to consider this one report, but this should be in your suite of reports, no matter the software you're using. So the assigned resource, whether it's a solo individual as Chad or our cleanup crew number 2, what we've got here is an efficiency percentage of budget. So if they were at 125%, they're 25% under budget. What they would do is we'd aggregate or average these up to get a total. I'm going to show you actually how to do some aggregation and counting inside the software. But the idea is we know now non-emotionally if they're on budget. And this is data we can share with the crew live time within a day. The idea, though, is we built this as percentages, 100%. We can go to you and say, hey, you guys gave 100% with quality. Now, that's important. If you gave 125% today, you kicked butt. You did your job. But conversely, if you only gave 85%, and the difference between 85 and 100 is the time you're over budget. So if you were, let's just say, at 75% for easy math, the difference between 75 and 100 is 25. You were 25% over budget. So that's a non-emotional number we could stick on the shop wall, on a TV or dry erase board. It doesn't show you how many people were budgeted for each hour, but these reports will get you that data. So we're not creating animosity amongst the crews, but we've got clear accountability with quality for these crews. So we want daily and weekly reports that we can report out on each crew's efficiency and the entire company. And we want a percent of budget in a fashion, whether it's our version or your version, that we can actually show to the crews that doesn't show the actual budgeted hours. So if you do show the budgeted hours, someone's going to complain that they got too many hours, not enough hours. They're never going to be happy. Percentage is the way to go, especially with our crew that came in from Mexico and Guatemala. English is a second language. Sometimes they had a hard time understanding some of the things we were showing them on the wall, but they did understand the percentages, 100%, giving 100%. That was pretty common across all the cultures that we employed, whether it was H2B or our normal workforce. So that would be my pro tip. So basically your third report there that we're looking at before we get to the bonus report is be able to daily and weekly accountability with a percentage over or under budget on a daily, weekly report, automated out. And the final one here is automated job costing. So this is a report we should be running right now if we have not done this without emotion. But once again, we need that labor and labor burden connected on the employees, which is good news. If you don't have it, you can update it and it'll update in. In addition, we also need good data from the closeout day screen, as we've already viewed on this video. So if you're joining me late, make sure you watch the review of it. But what we've got now is every client that we have serviced here, and we know the assigned resource, the date, and we have budgeted hours. We have actual hours. We have revenue per man hour and our total revenue. So once again, the sheet is checking, do we have a start and stop time, a budgeted time, and revenue we're charging. You can see here in this example, we do not have some data. So check the actual hours and check the revenue per man hour. This is going to force you to go back to the closeout day screen and update. Good news is once you update it on the closeout day screen and refresh this automated report we're going to dive into here in a second, that data will flow and you got good data. So what we've got here is in this fictitious company, actual revenue confirmed, how much we were making, and what is our desired dollar per man hour. So if you plug in and told us, say, hey, Mike, I want to make $55 per man hour, the sheet is saying, hey, on this account here, you need to raise that average trip $5.04. This says you need to raise it by $1,200, but lo and behold, we've got some red data in here. That is inaccurate and missing data, so we need to go back and fix that assumption before we do such. Next job down here, we've got all green data. Need to raise the price $12.19 or $12.90. And on the bottom one here, we're hitting our hourly goal of $55 an hour, so we don't need to raise the price. So if we're going out and raising and doing contract renewals right now, my suggestion is we raise the price to our hourly goal on just the people not hitting the hourly threshold. If we're making $100 an hour and our goal is 55, don't go out and raise the prices by 1% to some of your most profitable clients, because what they're going to do is go out and shop you, and you're going to lose your most profitable and best clients. And what you've done is only incrementally raise the losers, and they are definitely losers for most of the time, because these are the people that complain, they don't pay you on time, and are just not fun to work with. And they already know they're getting a deal. So we want to go out and non-emotionally raise those prices. So that is the third and final report that we want to actually do. And as an added bonus, if we're talking about reporting, we want to have that crew buy-in from those daily and weekly reports for public accountability. So if you're putting it on the shop wall or a TV, this is a great template to use. We've got our 11 mowing crews here, percent of budget across the board, and the quality score. And that's going to be out of a 10. And then we have our weekly results. So now we have our non-emotional alignment of revenue per man hour, our production, with a quality score. Once again, we want to use it as a percentage, not the budgeted hours, because we will create animosity around the crews. So Kyle, great question. What I'm going to do now is dive into Service Autopilot Report Center and give you some basics, how to build the 3 plus the bonus report I showed you in there. But there is an endless amount of opportunity here, even going into figuring out how much production rate it is per 1,000 square feet based on the piece of equipment. So as we're adding this data in, we can start to not use industry averages, but we can actually implement some time and motion studies based on the guys and girls in the field and your actual equipment. So once again, this is the canned reports here. We're going to be living in an analysis, and the pecking order of an analysis in a report is that data is held inside of analysis, and it can be captured inside a report to send out where people don't actually have access to this database. So was on a call last night with very important customers for Service Autopilot, and we were actually called in to lend a hand to help in these reports. So the Simple Grow team really is taking the reports to a next level. We've spent thousands of hours over the last 2 or 3 years in here. We were actually at Service Autopilot's office in Dallas when they were actually building these, when John and Jonathan, the co-founders of Service Autopilot, flew out my whole development team to actually help them put some structure and some workflow to the automations that you're currently using. So we've been seeing this as long as we've been doing automation. So there's a lot here. I suggest taking some baby steps. Start out with a toaster oven. When you're ready to dial in, we're going in and we're selecting some data sets here. So there is a lot of options here. But let's go in, and we're just going to go in and take a job cost details. So this is the foundation of a lot of the reports we're doing. Start and stops, dollar per hour. Now it's going to select everything in here. We probably want to go in. Let's say we've got the number of men, the actual hours that they're on the job, and maybe budgeted hours per man hour. And we would probably want the drive time cost effect, and then our labor cost and our labor cost of revenue. So I'm not getting the exact I won't get into the exact percentages, but in our scale and masterminds group, we talk about what a healthy labor percentage of revenue is. Some of this can be actually built out automatically inside here. And then we're going to go in and grab our service, and this will probably be a good starting point here. So I'm going to go in now. I can go in and select the actual clients. So it's a cascading thing as it loads the data tables on top. So Kyle had a great question here, and we're going to get into this here. So let's grab. We're going to do a service address. Depending what data is in here, I won't do a client name, and we could go into custom fields. So let's go in and grab the date of the job and the budgeted hours as well. So this is a good start. Actual stop time is probably decent, and assigned resources. So you can play with this. Once you hit OK, you can drive this in. Once again, you can pull those custom fields in and start maybe building production reports as well. So as this loads in, we've got all our data in here. So these are drag and drop builders. So as we're building these here, I would suggest starting to go in and dragging some things around. So date, we would go in and put the service address. We are going to go in and put our service name, our service in here. Number of men, I would probably say actual start, actual stop, and grab my assigned resources. So I know what the resources were, how many men, start, stop time, actual hours, our budgeted hours, budgeted dollars per hour, our drive time cost effect, and our labor cost effect. So those are some of the things that we would look at. And man, maybe labor as a percentage, okay? So as we're going in here now, we can go in and add some filters. So let's go in and do a date filter. So we're going to go in and filter, and I'm going to do a date range here, and I'm going to go into a specific date here. And we'll grab one here. So let's do the month of June. We're going to add that in. So what we've done is started a filter between the 1st and 30th of June. And now what we can do is go into the date and actually sort it from A to Z. So we're going from top to bottom, and we can filter down. Now there's some additional things here we may want to do. So, and we'll get into some basic equations. So we can go in now and actually go into service address or client name. Right now we did an address. So what I'm going to do is actually group all of our clients together. So we've got all of the jobs we did at each location per visit. And we've got actual start times, and we've got actual hours. So actual versus budgeted. So one of the questions, as Kyle said, how do we start to actually run data on some of these things here? So in this test account, obviously we're missing some labor and drive time cost effects. But what we could do now is go into these formula and name this over/under the hours. And the formula now would go in, and we're going to take the column of budgeted hours and subtract that from our actual hours. Actually, we would probably want to do that in the opposite order. And that data type is going to be a number, and a display format would be probably just a number. So we would go in and actually add that out. So this is how we start to aggregate and start building those additional those numbers that Kyle actually had. Now we can go in, and you can see here we've got the display format is kind of funky. So if we click into that here, we can actually put our display format and put that in there. We're not going to hit add. We're actually going to replace that. And by replacing it, that will update those values on there based on the selection we made. Now we pulled them out to 2 digits. So now that we have that, the other interesting thing here is we may want to know how many jobs we did for each person. So based on the date or the service, we can go in and say, based on that service, how many services did we actually do in that month? So we can go in and aggregate and actually get a count. And that's going to go in and subtotal each one of those jobs as we go in. Now, I probably could give you a 10-hour crash course here, so I don't want to go too deep. But we have a total of 1,600 jobs done in the month, and this is a specific count on each one of those. Now, what we've done here on our over and budgeted hours is we've got our total for each one. So what we probably want to do now is go in and aggregate and take an average. Now, this can all be done in the formulas up here, but I'm trying not to overwhelm everybody in this video. But this is some of the foundational stuff. And like I said, we've been doing this for a long time. It's not uncommon that the software company will actually call us to get some insight how we build some of these reports. We've got a team of about 26 to 28 people full time now that actually work on some of this. And we spend probably 20 to 30 hours a month at least in the report center building new reports and testing it. So on average, you can see now we're over under budgeted hours here. Now we got some over, some under. The idea here is then we could probably go in and format those cells. And we'd want to say if the numeric value is up to 0, let's see how this goes. And hit OK. So if it is less than 0, we are good. Now we can go in and add additional data. If it's over 0, over budget, we could put it in red. So these are some of the things we could start to format as visual clues as well. Now, if we're looking at Kyle's question of dollars per man hour revenue, we could also go in and aggregate and take an average. And that's going to be the easiest way of doing this. We can also write custom formulas up top right up here, just like I did here. And that is also a great way of doing it. But now I know my average value here of my revenue per man hour. So that's how we start to then eventually take that data and say, if the revenue per man hour is less than, say, $55 an hour, what do I need to charge? So these are some of the basics in the Service Autopilot Report Center that I would recommend that you start with on the basics. And if anybody has their comments or questions or want a more advanced video, how to actually go out and build more custom formulas, just like we did here, I'm happy to dive in that. But that is basically, here is your list of columns, and there's a list of formulas that we can get in here, and as well as the operators here. We can also go in and write not if-else statements, but actually case statements. So for most people watching this, diving into a case statement would probably be extremely confusing. So I've kept this actually pretty detailed, but high level, not to cause confusion. So comments, questions, drop them below. Top 3 reports plus the bonus 1 report that we should be looking at. We are going to go in, and I'll give you a quick overview and how to actually go in and build out reports in Logi. So the first report that we should be looking at is a sales pipeline report based on your estimate automation follow-up. We want job costing data in here for success. So we have good data in, good data out for our job costing data for drive time and on the site with labor and labor burden. Got to clock in and out of those drive times. Closeout day screen. We need all the appropriate information in there. Start and stop time, budgeted time, and values, and we need some save views to save the checking of this data for your admin or virtual assistant. As we're going in, this is another view of those 3 areas: start and stop, budget hours, and rate. Raising prices, how do we do it? We raise it on the prices just below our hourly threshold. And this is our manual export out of the little toaster icon that we can use into Excel, but I recommend automating this report through our V2 KPI and accountability. So we're going to have our daily and weekly reports telling is a percentage if they're over and under budget per crew for the day and summarized for the week, and our job cost and report to raise those prices non-emotionally. Final piece that I do want to leave you with is when we go back to the home icon and this loads, how do we actually automate these reports to get them in your hands or your managers or your team's hand in there. So the key thing to remember is you have up to 5 reports. We are working with SA as of right now to get that number up so you can actually automate these reports, because who really wants to go in here and find these? We hit the green icon here of the schedule. We put in all of the information, who it's going to, and hit done. And once we do that, if we come back, there will be another button here that we can hit run on or run now, and we can actually send that automatically to report that. So that's how we send our analysis. And if we want to build the analysis, I can make another video how to take your analyses and actually bucket them up inside a report. So Kyle, great question. How to build some formulas, how to get some reports in SA. Hopefully it helped. Callahan's Corner, you asked the questions. We answer them live right here.